Hello and welcome to this video, which is the second half of my blog post on how to copy audio between buffers. If you haven't read the blog, then the link to it will be below this video. So in the first half of the blog I was writing about this patch here, which was submitted by Jayrope, and this incorporates the waveform objects, as we can see here, which are used to select an area, and then we can copy to it by using this button here. So just to go through the motion of exactly how the copying works, if I click in this waveform here, as soon as I do that, we can see the value jumps up there for the start position. As soon as we start dragging the area and creating a length, we can see that that is affecting this buffer here, because the value for the length here is connected to the size object down here. So now we understand that, we can look at the problems that are involved and why it's not suitable for the patch. In the DJ patch, there's going to be more than one channel or one buffer object that I would like to select from. And at the moment, this patch is only offering the option to read from buff A and write to buff B. So if we click on the option there, we can see we've got an area there into here. So in order to be able to make this into adaptable for our purposes, for my purposes, the what's going to need to happen is that we'll need to be able to select different sources or waveforms to come into these values here. We'll also need to be able to assign the peak object here to read from a specific buffer, and this object down here will also need to be selected so that we can adjust which buffer object to write to, and the same with the size variable 1 object going into this buffer. We'll also need to be able to alter that buffer. So to do that, we've got our millisecond to sample objects there, and above these we have two G switches. Now the G switches are actually controlled via these buttons up here with channel A and channel B, and as we click on them we can see that the two G switches move to the different outlets. So when you click channel A, the first bang that comes out of it goes to this message here, which has got the 1 and the 0 in it, and this value, as we saw, alters the inlet for the G switch. Now the reason why the 0 is on the right hand side is for the message ordering, so that the inlet is selected before any data is allowed to pass through that. If the inlet was opened after the data would start to flow, then there would be error messages due to the loss of the data. So the next thing that this button here does is it then sends out a bang to this button here. Now this button then sends a bang, as we can see, to the right hand side due to message ordering, to a message here. These contain the names of the buffers for which these channels are assigned to. So channel A is assigned on buffer tune A, and channel B is on buffer tune B. Now once it receives these bangs, it will then output these names to this message here, where it will be stored as a variable 1, as we can see here. Now once this object here has received either one of those buffer names, the button will then send out another bang to the message here, and that bang will actually cause it to send the set command with whichever buffer name has been stored down to the peak object here, and then that will cause the peak object then to be assigned to read from whichever buffer was sent from these two objects here. Make sense? Hope so. Okay, so the same thing also happens here. with the copy loop 2. We have 4 loops that's found on a normal DJ mixer software, for example Tractor. So the similar things happen here. When the loop is selected, it sends out a bang down here to a value. Again, this value comes down to a G switch 2 down here, and that will then cause the outlet to be selected. You can see, and this outlet and an outlet there basically feeds into the buffer objects, as we can see. And this, by doing this, we allow the size command to tell the buffer what size to be, how much memory to allocate. That will then come down through this inlet here into any of the buffers. So the set one, also it will take the name of any of these buffer objects, load it into that command, and then send that to the peak buffer, the peak object down there to write to that particular buffer. Okay, so hopefully you can see how that works and how that's expanded, and that we've basically just adapted the 3 key points which needed to be done. The rest of it has been left intact. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.